we live our lives. More and more, that cigarette or drink at home, that political candidate you supported, even your eating habits are coming under the scrutiny of your boss. If he doesn't approve, it might even cost you your job. That's what happened to these two women. Anita Ippolito and Kara Stifler were considered model employees at WICO, an insurance consulting firm outside of Lansing, Michigan. Anita, 14 years on the job, Kara, 5. They sat side by side, sharing workloads, and after work, the occasional cigarette. But at a company benefits meeting 2 years ago, the company president announced,
as of January 1st, 2005, anyone that has nicotine in their body will be fired. And we sat there like in awe, and I spoke out at that time. You can't do that to us. And then he said, yes, I can. I said, that's not legal. And he came back with, yes, it is.
And it was. In the state of Michigan, there's no law that prevents a boss from firing people virtually at will. At WICO, that meant no smoking at work, no smoking at home, no smoking, period.
Good afternoon, WICO.
WICO gave employees 15 months to quit. Then they were subject to random nicotine testing. You fail, you're out. Did either of you say, okay, this is awful, but, you know, this is a chance to break the habit?
I did. I tried to quit smoking. I took advantage of their program, the smoking cessation program, but I was unsuccessful.
I'm trying every way to cut down, quit, gum. I'm trying, yes, on my own, but I don't need an employer to do that.
I pay the bills around here, so I'm going to set the expectations.
Howard Wires is the boss. Some would say tyrant of WICO.
What's important? This job or the use of tobacco? Make a decision.
I came right out and said, does not 14 years of my dedication or loyalty to you. And I'm Italian, so loyalty means something. But does it mean nothing to you? And he said, sorry, Ippolito, no.
You didn't feel any sympathy at all for them?
No, because I gave them plenty of time to make a decision.
In the end, 20 employees quit smoking. 4 wouldn't and were fired when they refused to take a breathalyzer test. A year later, Anita and Kara are still unemployed, still smoking, and fuming.
I think that smoking is a great smoke screen around the true issue here. This is about privacy. This is about what you do on your own time that is legal, that does not conflict with your job performance.
What it's really about is money. Big business is increasingly nosing into your business, trying to cut the costs of their business. And the easiest targets are smokers. Really obese people whose health care is among the costliest are protected by federal law. But thousands of companies and countless municipal governments and police departments refuse to hire smokers. And some require affidavits and even use lie detector tests to enforce the policy. Bosses like Howard Wires will not pay for what they see as other people's bad habits.
The biggest frustration in the workplace is the cost of health care. Medical plans weren't established to pay for unhealthy lifestyles.
How much does it cost you? How much have the smokers that you once employed here cost you?
I never really measured them.
So it may not have cost you a dime.
Well, it may not, but I don't know what's going to happen 5 years from now with that person is smoking. That's what I don't want to wait for.
This former college football coach works out 5 times a week and wants his employees to share his values. At WICO, Howard rules.
I set the policy. I'm not going to bend from the policy.
But it strikes me as a kind of intolerant attitude to the habits, foibles, eccentricities of other people.
Right. I would say I'm intolerable.
Intolerable and intolerant.
No, I am. But I just can't be flexible on the policy.
But Louis Maltby, head of the Work Rights Institute in Princeton, New Jersey, calls WICO's smoking ban a form of lifestyle discrimination. But he says it's perfectly legal in 20 states. And in most of America, a worker has virtually no rights at all.
Under the law in all but 5 states in America, your boss can fire you for any reason under the sun, including who you associate with after work, whether you're smoking or drinking in your own home, or a bumper sticker on your car, and you have no legal recourse.
The boss at Wyco says he fired those folks because smoking at home inevitably will cost him more for health care.
The problem is lots of things increase your health care cost. Smoking, drinking, eating junk food, not getting enough sleep, dangerous hobbies, skiing, scuba diving. If you allow employers to regulate private behavior because it's going to affect the company's health care costs, we can all kiss our private lives goodbye.
Maltby says Wyco is an extreme case, but examples of companies nosing into their employees' lives abound. At the Borgata Casino, bartenders and waitresses, they call them Borgata babes, can be fired if they gain more than 7% of their body weight, or penalizing workers by imposing higher health insurance premiums for activities the boss deems undesirable. And sometimes it's not even health-related.
There was a gentleman last fall in West Virginia who was fired because he asked an embarrassing question of a candidate at a political rally. There was a woman in Alabama who was fired for having a Kerry for President bumper sticker on her car. They all called their lawyers. They all called the ACLU. They all got the same answer. You have no legal rights.
And then there's Ross Hopkins. He worked for an Anheuser-Busch, a Budweiser distributor in Colorado.
I went out on a date with my girlfriend, and we went to a country bar, and the waitress had delivered a Coors by mistake. And, I just told her, well, I'll take it.
But then he ran into the boss's son-in-law who offered to buy him a Bud. He says he declined. And the next day at work,
At the end of the day, they'd pulled me in and told me that they were letting me go for drinking that Coors, and they told me to leave.
what was your reaction?
I was very surprised, very surprised.
He sued the Budweiser distributor for wrongful termination. Both parties refused to discuss the final resolution. Just between us, Ross, what do you prefer, Coors or Bud?
I used to really like Anheuser-Busch, but, this just tastes better and better and better.
Most companies don't care what beer you drink, it's how much you drink or smoke or eat. James Ramsey, the president of the University of Louisville, says the cost of bad behavior by university staff was getting out of hand.
The Band-Aids weren't working, the quick fixes weren't working. We can do mail order pharmacy, we can do all those kinds of things to control costs, but our costs are going up.
So the university instituted a so-called wellness program. If employees shape up, slim down, and fill out a questionnaire, a kind of confessional of your health, eating, and sexual habits, they get a $20 monthly credit on their health insurance premiums. You signed up. Have you seen improvement?
Dramatic improvement. I've lost 30 pounds. I don't have to take blood pressure medicine.
And says he's never felt better and is working out 5 times a week.
I'm calling on behalf of the university's Get Healthy program. How are you?
Employees must also agree to be regularly nagged by nannies.
Do you know what your current weight is?
This coach is checking in.
What types of snacks are you going to bring?
Part of the program are these coaches who essentially nag you.
What kind of dietary changes have you been focusing on?
Isn't that going a little far in terms of the private lives of the people working for you?
If I volunteer for a program, then I'm volunteering to be nagged and to be pushed, and it works.
He says it's too soon to know if the wellness program is controlling costs. But Mark Rothstein, a bioethics professor at Louisville, did not sign up. He says wellness programs may lead to better health, but can people trust in the confidentiality of the questionnaires they filled out?
People who work for employers who perhaps don't have the best record of keeping privacy might well be concerned that the information could filter back to the company and they could be adversely treated.
Not get that promotion.
Exactly. There's a tremendous incentive for employers to try to weed out high-cost healthcare users. 5% of employees represent 50% of healthcare costs. And if you're an employer and can identify who these people are, you can save a lot of money to your bottom line.
Which is what this is all about. Countless companies like Quaker Oats, Johnson & Johnson, Honeywell, Motorola, and IBM claim to have saved millions after instituting wellness programs. But all that good health might not necessarily make for the best workforce. The city of North Miami, Florida, used to require that all its new police officers be non-smokers. But 2 years ago, the city quietly dropped the smoking ban. Gwendolyn Boyd is the city's chief of police.
We realize that at best we may save 5% on our insurance premium. But now we're having a problem with trying to recruit and hire highly qualified candidates, and we're competing against agencies that do not have that policy.
Did dropping the policy dramatically change that? Were you able to find qualified people?
I would have to say unequivocally yes.
Officer Juan Mayato believes that the city ultimately learned that those smokers, more often than not, made pretty good cops.
I mean, what does smoking have to do with the way you perform your job out here? There's a lot of people that smoke that are well qualified for this job, and it doesn't affect them. And, you know, they couldn't hire them.
That was the problem CNN faced. And after 13 years of a ban on hiring smokers, it rescinded the policy. Even so, Louis Maltby says it's going to be near impossible to marshal support for smokers.
Smoking has become more than a health issue. Smoking has become a moral issue. Somehow people look at smokers and say, you're a bad person because you smoke. I don't know quite how that happened, but it has.
But Howard Wires would even like to extend his smoking ban to the spouses of his employees. And for other bad habits, a heavy hit. A scale next to the company vending machine.
It's a little like you know, the old communist Eastern Europe. Big Brother is watching you all the time.
Well, maybe Big Brother should be watching because we have to eliminate that problem.
Even if it means snooping into their private lives.
I don't snoop into their private life. When they leave here, I don't follow them.
Well, you do after a fashion.
Well, a policy does.
And you are the policy.
Yeah, that's right. I'm the policy maker. Yes, sir.